Hey folks, it's Rob Flux here for another Sunday session, and today we're going to be talking all about property data, and all things property data, more specifically to Joe Rossi from National Property Data. So Joe, come on in. And we're going to talk about why data is so important and how National Property Data is the new kid on the block and the new solution to solve everyone's problems and world hunger where humanly possible. So welcome, Joe.
Thank you, Rob. Nice to be here.
Thank you. So, mate, National Property Data, as I said, new kid on the block, or are they? So, firstly, give us some background on who is National Property Data and how long they've been around, mate.
Well, it's not a short story, Rob. But I'll try and condense it as much as possible because although we're a new kid on the block, we're providing solutions, property solutions across Australia, giving people insights on property. But we're actually have been around. The story is almost 40 years, and it started with a cooperative of real estate agents, Estate Agents Cooperative, EAC. And a lot of people will remember the trays out the front of every real estate office with magazines. And they started collecting data from those magazines and progressed across to a multi-listing service before the internet. It was a listing service between agents that were sharing listings before the property boom and before everybody was talking about real estate like they are now. So as a data collector, we actually started in the mid to late 80s, all the way through launching a platform in 2000, especially for real estate agents. And as we progressed, we started to move out of real estate for valuers, as an example. We're very popular with valuers and now absolutely popular with the developer community like yourself. So that whole history of going and collecting data for real estate agent and then expanding that out is really what National Property Group is about. And then, of course, the founder now buying out the cooperative and turning it into a company, because one of the problems that people have is that if you've ever had more than one real estate agent in a room, it's like herding cats and trying to get them to say what a gold mine they were sitting on to actually agree to invest more into the data just was almost impossible. And that's where National Property Group came in, moved it from a sole real estate platform to now a platform that suits developers, investors, finance, and of course still the real estate community.
Yeah, so
sorry, it was a bit long there, Rob, but I thought it was important to talk about that background, right?
Yeah, so I'd like to think of them as a 30-year-old startup.
That's exactly right. Well, we could say 60 years, but we won't go back that far, eh?
Well, it's not. That's before data was even invented, mate. Barney Rubble was chiseling things onto stone way back then. So, So, mate, you're the national sales manager. So tell us a little bit about your history in, I guess, the property world and more particularly in this particular space, in the property data space.
Sure. Well, look, I was actually a competitor to the EAC way back when. I started collecting data and selling it to agents back in 1987 via microfiche. If anyone's old enough to remember microfiche, I'm amazed that you're on this stream, right? Because you've got a handle of the technology. But microfiche, converting the microfiche into floppy disks and selling it to agents on a quarterly basis. But really, my main tenure was with RPData and developing their systems and developing their training across the board. So I've been involved in data with RPData since 1999. With all of their CRMs, their platforms, their data collection. So it's in my DNA, and the use of data around the different industries. That's what I've really enjoyed is looking at what problems people have and how that data helps them solve those problems. Interesting. My personal background is also I love to invest in property. I've done 2 developments myself, so I know how hard it is and how much information and how much this information helps in that whole workflow of a developer.
Yeah. I guess with that long history in, I guess, RPData, we won't say their name ever again.
No, let's stop using that.
So you've clearly got some really good inside knowledge as to how they actually operate. So when the National Property Data, I guess, opportunity presented itself as a point of difference, what was the opportunity that you saw there that they weren't doing in the other world?
When you have such a large organisation, their focus and look, without giving too much away, basically their focus is on the banks and the valuation model of the banks. That's where a lot of their energy is, and most of their revenue comes from those platforms. And the real estate side is just where their eyeballs are. So what we really my job when I came across, I saw, wow, I've got this agile, flexible company that's got the same data platform, but actually we can maneuver. And I know you have some interest in NPG as well, and you've been influencing me and the development. But what I saw was some key functions that allows a developer in particular really narrow down on what they're trying to do and which is find a property developer course, right? And I think that's where I saw that opportunity. For me, taking some of the technologies that we have here and being more flexible and agile as well. So I'm going to talk APIs and AVMs, and I'm going to talk this jargon, and hopefully you'll translate it for me later on.
We'll park those for the moment. We'll look to them a little bit later.
But for me to jump into a smaller agile, and that's why I'm here today, is hey, I saw the data, I saw the agility, and we can really do some great things. And especially I've been working with you, Rob, in this development space and doing some good things. So I think we can pinpoint, but that's why I came across and why I'm here today.
Yeah, thank you. And you did touch on the fact that I do have an involvement in, I guess, National Property Group, which is, I guess, the owner of National Property Data, the product. So for full disclosure, folks, I am a director of National Property Group, and I guess as part of that, I guess was part of and instrumental in, along with a couple of other directors, I guess the reinvigoration of the platform and bringing it, I guess modernising it and I guess taking it into new markets that it's not actually been before. I'm also chairman of the advisory board, I guess, and looking at the technology side of things and the roadmap as to how and where we're actually going. And that comes from, in my previous world, I had 20 odd years in IT. I was a solution architect designing multi-million-dollar data solutions for Virgin, BHP, Flight Centre, and a couple of others. And I looked at the platforms that were sitting out there at the to be unnamed competitors. And I looked at that and went, well, as a property expert and also as a data expert, I could actually see that the data could be used differently. And should be used differently in order to become a little bit more efficient, or a little bit more effective in how you actually achieve the outcomes for the business cases that we're all trying to put together. And so when the opportunity came about to, I guess, acquire the EAC platform and I guess reinvigorate it, I guess myself and the other directors jumped on that and saw the opportunity, and we're grateful for having people like yourself, Joe, and many others that have come from that unnamed organisation to actually completely turn this on its head. We're almost the Uber of the property data space is kind of how I'm going to think of that. We're really trying to shake it up and do things completely different.
That's right. And I think that's where I was talking about that agility and being able to develop data points for specific industries. And I've enjoyed your input and the development. I think it's really key.
Yeah. Well, the key thing, and as I said, one of the things that I saw in there, and from my IT background, I know that data tells a story. And if you can read and understand and interpret the data, and more importantly, interrogate the data, then we can understand all sorts of things about what's actually happening under the covers. And so there's some really, some typical use cases that people would use all the time. And then there's the ones that hadn't been used by the other platforms, and we'll kind of touch on those and why our platform's a little bit different to the others. But, the typical ones, time on market, age listings, that's a common one that almost every real estate agent, every developer is actually looking for. But that's the simple stuff, isn't it, Joe? There's heaps of other stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The ability to grab a property and see its timeline, how long it's when the original purchase, what they bought it for, but that's sort of base data. But then as you come along, you get was it rented? How long it's been rented? When did it come on the market for sale? How long has it been on the market for sale? These are gold information.
How many agents has it been through?
That's so true.
How has the marketing campaign changed over the last 4 or 5 months because this thing hasn't turned over? All of those things, that they tell a story. You can start to see where people listed it, where they were greedy, and now they're starting to come back to market, and you can see that they've probably got a little bit more room to go, and you can see other people who are being more realistic. You can see who's an investor. You can see who's an owner-occupier. Lots of things when you know how to actually understand and read the data. And I guess some of the other ones out there that I know that our competitors don't do is the development potential of the site. So, and that's one of our key points of difference that the other guys don't actually do.
Yeah, I think we were talking earlier as we were setting up the intro for this, Rob. We're talking about those really key data points that help you eliminate, and how sometimes that the workload is not actually picking a property; it's eliminating all the properties that are not suitable. So that ability to just search on a frontage, you need, let's say, anywhere between 15 and 30 metre frontage. I know that's broad, but I'm just using that as an example. Being able to search all the properties on the market in a suburb that have that frontage just helps you eliminate so much and just narrows down on those properties straight away. Then move quickly across to the map to see where they sit inside the suburb. Are they on a main road? Are they on a cul-de-sac? Are they just the contour maps as an example? Are they on the side of the hill? And then using that type of data point to determine splitter blocks is another example of that. And again, that's just gold, something that's already on 2 titles. Wow.
Yeah.
How much time and money does that save you?
I'm going to park that little conversation for a little bit later in this.
Can I come in too early, Rob? I'm sorry.
We're a little bit premature, mate. There's some fantastic features that we're doing that the other guys aren't, and Joe just touched on one being splitter blocks. So yeah. I'll loop around to that a little bit later, because I want to actually talk about an entire section on where we are different as we go. But I guess we're doing all the things that the other guys are doing and more. That's probably the key point. And when we're talking about I guess data telling a story, there's simple things that a lot of people don't actually realize. So we were talking before about the on-market status, for example. That comes from an agent putting a listing on, I guess, a sales portal, and I guess us intercepting that data as it goes up. But when we start to see that, and then we cross-check that against things like the Valuer General data, there are many, many times when you're going to see that an agent has left a property on market from an advertising perspective, but the property's actually gone under contract and actually sold and settled in some instances. And so the agent's leaving it up there just to get their brand name out and all those sorts of things.
Get the phone's calling.
Get the phone's calling, right? So now, on the other platforms, you can't see simple things like that, right? So, is that property still for sale? Well, no, it's not. So being able to interrogate the data in really, really creative ways and actually understanding those sorts of problems means that we can get outcomes out of our platform that nobody else can. And, it came down to, I guess, in my role on the advisory board, it really came down to me trying to influence the methodology that I apply in my development world into, I guess, this technology stack. And that is, we don't want to find a reason to keep it. We want to find a reason to throw it away. And the quicker we can find a reason to throw it away, then the faster we can actually get our job done. And so we're doing little searches and little features, and that means that we can eliminate a whole bunch of dud sites that the other guys, you have to do like thousands of hours in some instances of manual checking. Sometimes it's 1 hour, sometimes it's 10 hours, sometimes it's literally thousands of hours when you're going through an entire suburb. We can eliminate some of those things in literally 10, 15 seconds. And that is a massive point of difference between us and the other guys. Yeah. Now, from a software tools perspective, mate, there's a couple of different kinds of software platforms. I get this question all the time. As a matter of fact, I had a previous Sunday session recording that actually talks about all the different software platforms that are actually out there. But fundamentally, it comes down to there being two. There's sales research tools and development research tools. So that is, what is a property actually worth in its raw site and its cooked form? And then, I guess, the potential for that site to actually be developed. National Property Data we are the sales research tool that actually has some of the development research solutions in there, which then allows us to do those really, really creative things. So, which gives us the sales focus, but those core development things. So the ability to search on zonings, the ability to search on frontages, and those sorts of things that you actually touched on. The other guys can't do that. Now, definitely we're not a development research platform, but what we're trying to do is to say, we don't want the median house price of the area. What we want is the median house price of a development potential site in the area, right? Just little simple things like that, that means that we can nut that out super, super fast. So you touched on before, mate, I guess the fact that we are a little bit different to, I guess, our competitors, in that we're not really targeting one industry vertical. We're actually looking at multiple industry verticals. What are some of the industry verticals that we touch on?
Well, look, obviously, we service the real estate industry, but one of the things that we cross over is, of course, the investor and the developer industries, and we did this on purpose. We basically said, what are we trying to do? How do we help developers? And I touched on it before about those specific searches, but you spoke about, being able to exclude properties really quickly. Just the dynamic search functionality allows us to get across to the developers. When we talk about servicing, say, agents, and you spoke about looking at that timeline, the fact that we get from major portals the advertising history in a timely manner, again, helps this refinement tool. So you can do these really quite specific searches. We call it an elastic search. It's jargon for quite a complex filter that allows you to filter it down and then look at that in a list and say, all right, well, these are the particular properties that I am interested in because they fall into those categories.
So I might use my IT brain here to just kind of help people understand that elastic search comment that you actually made. Okay, so all of our competitors and us, we all source the majority of our data from very similar sources. So the Valuer General, or the titles office, depending upon where you're located and what you might use it from a terminology perspective. That's going to give you certain informations about who owns it, where they, when they bought it, when they sold it, when it settled, all those sorts of things. Then you've got the listings data. So we're going to get that from the sales portals and from the agents and the agent CRMs. And that's going to tell us, well, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, has it got a pool? Is it photos? Is it an apartment? Is it a townhouse? Is it those sorts of things? Then we go to the council data and we go, well, what's the zoning and those sorts of metrics. So these end up being silos of data. So we've got a silo of data from the Valuer General, we've got a silo of data from the sales listings, we've got a silo of data from the council, and a whole bunch of other silos. And that's pretty much how every sales platform actually pulls their data in. Where we are different, where I guess, and a massive difference as to why our platform is so flexible is the other guys only let you search against one of those silos, and that's the Valuer General data. And what they do is they display the information from everything else.
That's right.
Which means that you can search on a property and you can find out what the zoning is. You can see the photos. You can see that the agent called it a townhouse, and so you know it's a townhouse and not an apartment. But you have to look at that on a per property basis, and you can't do any searches against any of that.
That's right.
What we've done is being able to search across all of those silos at the same time and be able to create very flexible workflows on that. So, for example, I can search on show me the land size against the Valuer General data. I can do the zoning against the council data. I can do the frontage, which we've actually got from another data source where we've actually gone and calculated those. I can do the on-market status. Is it actually on market right here, right now? And so I can get this really creative outcome where I can go, well, I only want to see something that's actually got development potential that meets my exact category, that's actually on the market right here, right now. And not only is it on the market, but as we touched on before, the agent hasn't left the ad up and it's actually sold and settled, which means that we can narrow down our searches like that.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
It is that ability then when you've got the search to swap the data around as well. So you've got this clean set of all the data. So you might not need sale dates or whatever. You might want to bring in the land size and you want to bring in, say, the frontage data point. You can bring that all in the list, export the data, and you've got that, right? So that elastic search works really well. And I think, the fact that, and a lot of people say, how soon do we get the data? How often do we update the data? Rob, that's probably one of the most common questions is that, hey, we update it as soon as we get it. But the point is that we get it from the real estate sources. So when something's sold, exchange contract, you've got it. You're not waiting for the VG data. And that's coming from our CRM portal feeds. That's coming from the actual listing portals as well, from direct from agents. And that just enriches and gives you that on-time data as you're doing these filters. You know it's on the market, you know it's settled, or you know that it hasn't been purchased, sold for 30 years. It's been in the same family. They're those important things that you can glean from these databases.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talked about, I guess, how quickly we get it. Well, it really depends on the source of the data. So, the zoning of a property is not going to change very often, so we don't need to get that on a daily basis. But the sales history, we absolutely do. The listings history, we absolutely do. So, we're looking at every single one of those silos and saying, well, how often do we actually update it? And we're at, I guess, we pretty much, as I touched on before, we get the same information from the same places for, I'm going to say, about 80% of our data. But it's how we are able to cross-pollinate that and how we're actually able to interrogate that data that really is the point of difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
And because of that, and because we've started to, it's the 20% difference. Like I said, 80% is the same. It's 20% difference where we're starting to source data from other locations that the other guys aren't, that allows us to be that hybrid solution that helps us not just with developers, but also with valuers and, investors, the finance industry, those sorts of things. All of them are finding that the ability to interrogate the data and be able to be more efficient and more effective is amazing. Now, I'll use a very basic use case that probably most people don't even realize, okay? So by searching on just the Valuer General data or just the titles information, for pretty much every state out there, they do not differentiate the difference between an apartment a townhouse, a manor house, a terrace, they don't differentiate it.
That is one of the biggest problems, Rob. I get all the time units versus townhouses, and that sits in the median, that sits in those numbers, but you can't even search and find townhouses. You have to stumble across them, right?
So on the other platforms, you can't. We can.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
So in the Valuer General data, it's actually called a unit. Okay, it basically says it's part of a complex. But by us being able to search against the sales information, and the agent has called it a townhouse, so we know it's a townhouse. Or a valuer has previously been in there before, and they've called it a particular kind of unit, for example. So they might call it a terrace, for example. So we know that these things are way more accurate. So now when you're doing your research, if you're a valuer, you don't want to be searching through hundreds of units and going, is it a townhouse, is it an apartment, is it a townhouse, is it an apartment? You don't want to do that. If you're a developer trying to go, what does my finished product sell for, right? And if you're building townhouses, then you only want to see the townhouse results. So we are eliminating all of the noise to say, well, let's not look at the rubbish, mate. And that it's really those individual use cases that we have mapped out fairly robustly and said, how do we make it easier for a developer to do their job? How do we make it easier for a investor to do their job? How do we make it easier for a valuer to do their job? And the agents always had the platform. It was invented for the agents in the first place, but now we're making it more accessible to everyone. And even the agents are finding that super valuable, because when they're putting together their CMAs, for a townhouse, now it's easier for them. So we've made their world even better. So yeah.
Especially when you're developing a townhouse in Toongabbie, as an example, you've got this ability to search all townhouses, get the median price for 3-bedders or whatever you're developing really quite quickly, rather than having to filter out or uncheck all the actual units versus townhouses. It's a big tool.
Yeah. The other thing that we've concentrated a lot on is the user experience. So trying to make the platform, I guess, simple and intuitive, very, very easy to understand, so that it's surprisingly simple to the point where sometimes it disguises how powerful it is, because it is actually, I can't believe you can just do that. And so people kind of forget, I guess, what we've built under the covers, because it's so easy to use.
Yeah, I think that was the premise of the whole development, was to be able to get in, simple search, get your list, get to a map, or get to the actual individual property. They're the things that you're wanting to do, and we're trying to make those steps, or that as intuitive as possible. And that's the idea of the platform as well. A lot of feature-rich. There's lots of bells and whistles that we don't use as developers. We've tried to just clear that noise away. And what do you want to do? You want to search townhouses or blocks, whatever you're searching. Here's the list, and then filter all the list if you want to go even further. So it's, and then you can then map that. A lot of the platforms, you have to get to the property map and then do things inside the map to get more information, whereas we can actually give you the list, tag the properties of interest, go to the map straight away and show them on a map. So really nice and simple.
Which then lets you see, which properties are selling for higher, which ones are selling for lower, and the geography that they're sitting on. Well, one's on the left side of the highway and one's on the right side of the highway, and you can make those sorts of assertions, much easier by seeing that and walking around the map, and
that's so true
as we go. So some of the other things that we do, I guess, very differently to the other guys, and I'm sure they're doing this to some extent, but I think it's the level that we're actually going to, is the direct linkages into the agent CRMs. Okay. Now, real estate agents they've got CRM as a customer relationship management platform. That is what the agent uses as their Bible to say, I'm tracking every sales lead, I'm tracking every sale, both from a listing perspective and also from a potential buyer's perspective. That CRM is their Bible. So we've got direct linkages into those CRMs. And the reason that we've got that direct linkage to the CRMs is one of our major shareholders is one of the biggest CRM providers in the country, right? So
that's right.
It's in their best interest to be able to be more efficient, more effective for their clients. And so they saw what we're trying to do as a massive value add. So that company is probably one that most people haven't actually heard of. The mothership is actually called PropTech Group, or PTG. They own 55% of all the CRM markets, CRM platforms out there.
Yeah.
And so, we have a very integral relationship with those guys. And more recently, PTG have actually been bought out by another competitor in that CRM space called MRI, which, and off the top of my head, I'm not 100% sure, but I think MRI have about 30% of the CRM platform. So, now we've got some really great relationships with 85% of all the agent CRMs.
Yeah, that's so true.
Right. So there's some efficiencies and data points and business and use cases that I guess are in the roadmap. Is how do we add value to their world, and also how do they add value to our world? That watch this space, folks. This is going to get exciting, I guess.
I think, Rob, the significance of that. Sorry to interrupt. The significance of it is that real estate agents have actually always been the eyeballs for these data platforms. They're the ones that are going to inspect properties to list or rent and so on. And the more their databases as mature as well. And this beauty of our synergy between our database and their database means that we just have more eyeballs to tell us about those properties.
And
which then filters out to the valuers and filters out to developers, because once upon a time, real estate agents wanted to keep, or they were the gatekeepers of the information. And we're creating these data lakes that allow more people to access that information.
Yeah, and I guess other direct linkages again into the agent industry, because the agents, as you said, are I guess the pivotal point to this. We've got direct linkages into some of the sales portals, and the more specific one is one called Homely that some of you might not have, I guess, come across, but you should, guys. This is like super important. Everyone's heard of realestate.com.au, everyone's heard of Domain, but Homely are third, right? So from a features and functionality perspective, that sort of thing, they've got all the things that the other guys have got. But the most important part is Homely is actually owned by the agents industry. So the majority of the shareholders in Homely are agents. So it's in their best interest. It's in their best interest to make the best platform humanly possible, and feeding all of their data into there. So we are working with them, and they are working with us again with that deep level integration to go, how do we improve each other's worlds? We can give them info that will make their agents happier, and they can give us information that again will give the same agents happier, looking at the data from a very different perspective. I like to think of it as a Rubik's cube, right? So when I'm looking at the data, I'm seeing blue. When you're looking at it, you're seeing green, but it's the same data. When you spin it around, it's how do we actually get that different angle of that? And so it's really where we can share data with others, where we can create those symbiotic relationships. And that's probably one of our points of difference is we're working with organizations. We're not trying to take over organizations. How do we
make it even easier? Because what we do there is, because we're so deep linked with Homely, if you're working on a property and you want to see the ad, you just click on the Homely button. It takes you straight to the ad, and you can then see who's listed it, what the full description of it is, what the floor plans are, all of that sort of stuff, and then come back into your research model. So this deep linkage just saves you time. You're just not having to log into different applications.
Yeah, and the other thing that we're doing is working with a whole bunch of other prop tech companies. Some of them are more commercial in nature, where we're still ink to paper and that sort of thing still to come. So I can't reveal all of our secrets. However, there's a whole bunch of stuff coming, folks, where we're able to validate and cleanse their data. Most of them are looking for the same sort of data sets all the time, and they're trying to collect data. How do we make it more efficient, more effective for them? And equally, how do we able to add value to the data they already have, right? So, those sorts of things mean that I guess the platform that we've got today, which I'm super pumped about how capable we are today, but the platform that we're going to have in 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, I'm privy to and in the fortunate position of being able to drive that roadmap. So I'm excited about where this thing's going, mate. Like super excited.
Absolutely. And some of the things that we're seeing even now in the model, and people, I'm surprised at the usage sometimes, because we have this thing called an AVM, automatic valuation model, that actually allows you to model, what if I put another bedroom on, or what if I compare it to these properties? Is it better or is it worse? That then just recalculates the estimate. So you can sit there as a modeling tool and working out how this affects the price. What if this property is better? How will that affect the price? So that's here now, and I'm just so excited, because that's all about machine learning and getting better at that estimating and modeling of prices. And we all talk about AI, and it's all over the place, but we're actually starting to use some of the modeling to help us get more accurate pricing as well. But there's nothing like some local knowledge. If you've done a lot of research in a suburb, and you can then position this property within 3 or 4 properties and say better, worse, and then it spits out a number, it's really quite amazing how close you can get to the mark of what that property is going to sell for.
Yeah, and I guess the AVM is one side of things, and there's another tool that I guess most real estate agents would be using on a regular basis. And as a user and a consumer, we see this. It's called a CMA, comparative market analysis. So that's taking that, I guess, slightly differently, and that's more the human element actually going into that rather than automated. It's the human element where we can then start to go, well, actually, I only want to compare it against these specific properties because I know that these are more relevant to the actual product that we're looking for, and actually creates a report that an agent would typically put into, I guess, a vendor's hands to say, hey, I'd like to sell your property. But as developers, when you're going in to negotiate on a property, being able to put a CMA together yourself and not have to be a real estate agent to actually build one of these things means that you can go in and say, well, this is why your property is not worth what you think it's worth.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, nowhere before have I guess end users been able to use that CMA feature, and so we're opening it up to everyone to say, well, yeah, and we've got some really exciting updates coming to that in the next couple of weeks that I'm super stoked to make that even more user friendly and easier to understand and that. Now let's go through a feature set. We started talking features, but let's actually formally talk about. There's the features that everybody does, and some people don't even realize what some of these platforms are capable of. So we'll touch on that, and then there's, I guess, the secret sauce that we've got that we're going to make a little bit less secret, and we're not going to tell them how we do it, but we are going to give you some insights into the points of difference that we got. So typical sales research. Every one of our
Everyone's got it,
right? So that is what did the product sell for? When did it sell? How many bedrooms, bathrooms, all that sales research. So you can actually try and find both the raw side and the cook side. Okay. Now everybody does that, but where we are different, our point of difference is the ability to do that sales research with the development potential. So we're not looking for the median house price of a 600 to 800 square meter block of land because we want to put a duplex on it. What we're looking for is a 600 to 800 square meter block of land that has the correct zoning and the correct frontage. So it is a true direct comparison. So we're eliminating all the wheat from the chaff. We don't have to go, manually looking up, what is the zoning. We don't have to go manually looking up what is the frontage, but we can do a simple search that within 30 seconds says, just show me the ones that have got development potential. How many opportunities are in this area?
That's right. That's right. And that comes back to that elastic search, doesn't it, Rob? You're able to filter all of those out where you just can't with other platforms. You have to sit there, do the list, and then drill into each property to get the zoning, to get the front. You don't even get the frontage. You have to then go to the map. You have to use a measure tool. Whereas here we can actually derive. We have the frontage derived. We have the zoning as a searchable functionality, and then all that rich data comes with it.
Yeah, and equally, sales research on the finished product that we're trying to sell. We touched on it before. The ability to search for, show me just the apartments. The ability to search for, show me just the townhouses, which means that you know what the finished product is going to sell for much, much quicker, a lot less effort. And the amount of hours that this thing saves, it's just amazing. Seriously amazing. Yeah. Then we've got our mapping platform. So a mapping platform does, again, a whole bunch of features that the other guys do, and then a few features the other guys don't. So our mapping will show easements and contours and frontages and those sorts of things. That's the common stuff, right? What's not common is the fact that you can actually see the zoning on there. And the fact that from the map, you can actually do a radius search on the map and actually go, show me everything that's actually on the market right now in that particular area. Yeah.
You can actually put the search criteria inside while you're in the map. So you say, all right, give me everything within 5 kilometers, and then put that search criteria. So it narrows it down again, put your little flags on the map, and then zoom in and out and look at the blocks, look at the contours, look at the zoning. So it really is quite an efficient map. Look, I've got to put my hand up. I'd love a much more modern looking map, and I know you've got that on the roadmap.
It's on the roadmap, mate. Just watch this space.
But, people love that map as is because of that functionality. Sometimes we can put lipstick on it, but in actual fact the functionality doesn't change. But those important bits in that map is why people use us for many, many years. We got a lot of regional clients that will not go to other suppliers simply because that map just does those 1 or 2 different things that's key to their workflow.
Yeah, so I'm going to be very categorically clear. When we reinvigorate the map, it's not lipstick, mate. We're actually
that's exactly right.
So the capability of what's there right now is amazing compared to the other guys, and we are going to step it up a whole other level from there. So when that comes out, and I guess the roadmap is probably Q1-ish of next year, and I say ish because moving targets. But watch this space, folks. Some of the other things, people don't even realize that it's hiding in plain sight sometimes, some of the things that we've got in here. So simple things like suburb demographics. So we can see how old people are that are actually living in the suburb. We can see what their income ratio is. We can see what industry they work in. We can see a whole bunch of stuff that we get from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, and we also work with Homely to get some of the elements out of those. So you can actually work out what is the right product to be putting in front of these people, because if you know that it's an aging population, then putting a 2-story unit complex is probably not a smart idea, right?
No.
Unless you've got a lift in it. But if you did that, you might go, well, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to design it for age in place. I'm going to have wider doorways that's going to allow the Zimmer frame through a little bit later on. I'm going to strengthen the walls in the bathroom so I can actually put the handles on there. If you know the demographic, you can build the right product for that person.
That's so true.
Yeah.
It's interesting. When I talk to real estate agents, often they'll leave the demographics out of the conversation. They don't actually apply it. But what we always talk about is that when you're pitching a property to sell, you need to explain to the vendor who's going to be buying it. What is the market that's going to be buying this? And it's exactly the same for a developer. Who is going to be buying this product that you're developing? and the demographics just gives it to you in one really nice picture.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess the other things that we can do that I guess the other guys can do is the tenure. So how long has somebody actually held onto a property? So, if they've owned it for 10 plus years, then that's going to give you some insights into, they've probably got itchy feet, probably wanting to upgrade. But if they only bought it last month, might be hard, right? And the other ones is days on market. So I know that's a common one where, you can start to see aged listings and, where we said data tells a story. When you start to see, look, they've changed agents 3 times. It's been on the market for 180 days, and you've seen the price point come down a whole bunch of times. That's giving you some insights to go, do you know what? They're starting to get to reality, and there's probably a bargain on the table here.
Rob, that's my story. I bought my last investment property exactly like that, the one I'm going to develop. It was on the market 2 years ago. It passed in at auction, and I could see this on our platform. I could see it when it came on and then came back on. So the interesting part is that I knew exactly where they were sitting, what they had to get, because I knew what they bought for, and I was able to then negotiate from strength on, because they were trying to sell it in a different market, and now, and it actually, the market fell away a little bit during that time. So it was really quite a good way to buy. And, I had those insights. It was quite good.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
probably saved on that property something like, I don't know, 150,000.
Yeah.
With knowing that information.
By knowing how to read and interpret the data.
Absolutely.
So that's the stuff that everybody does. Now let's talk about the stuff the sexy stuff that we do that nobody else does. One of the key ones, and we touched on it before, the multi-lot search or the splitter search. Okay.
Yeah.
We're the only tool that can actually do this actual thing. So this is from a development potential. I'm just going to dumb it down for some people that are new in this industry. So a splitter block is one title, but where there might be 2 or more lots that are already registered on that title. So you're basically picking up a pre-approved development site. And that's the key, pre-approved development site, where you can ignore the council, but you can actually go to the state government, to the titles office, and you can just separate the titles by lodging a single form and paying about $300, right?
Yeah.
Which then means that what you had before was 1. Now what you've got is 2, right? So now this splitter block concept is something that has become super popular in Southeast Queensland from I guess a development potential perspective. However, what most people don't know is these splitter blocks are everywhere. There are suburbs in Sydney where there are 500-600 of these splitter blocks. There's deals being done. I've got one of my students in Victoria literally just did a splitter block only 2 weeks ago. There's a whole bunch of stuff where people don't realize that this stuff is everywhere, and arguably, I guess, depending upon location, it could be anywhere up to 25% of the properties out there already on multiple titles.
Yeah, look, a lot of agents don't even know when they're going in to do a listing appraisal that it's a splitter block. It's not until they start organising a contract for sale that they find out it's a splitter block, and people aren't aware that they're, because the house is straddled across the 2 blocks, or a development, a garage is across the 2 blocks, so they just don't even know. So this is a really nice way to identify that, and it just raises the value straight away, or the potential of the property, and our ability. Again, I'm going to come back to that filtering first. Our ability to get in, say, give me everything between 1 and 4 lots, and give me a list of them.
Yeah, and you said before, most of the time the agents don't know. If they're in Southeast Queensland, they know, right?
They have to do it. They know.
If they're in New South Wales, if they're in Victoria, if they're in South Australia, if they're in WA, most of them just aren't familiar with this concept. And so there is gold hidden in these things.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
It's one of the single most popular things that we talk about when we're sitting with a developer.
Yeah.
It's quite amazing.
Yeah. So the next one, frontage, right? So this is what we call derived data. So we actually calculate this. We understand, the longitude and latitude of all the different, corner points of a lot. We can actually calculate the frontage and the length and the width and all those sorts of things. And so we're able to search on that now to be able to say, well, just show me the ones that are, 15 meters and above, for example, because in your particular strategy and your particular deal size, your council might have that particular requirement. Say, well, you can only do it if you've got a minimum of 15 meters, your minimum of 20 meters. So now we can do a search and say, just show me the ones that have got that minimum.
Yeah. And look, I'm going to fall back to the map to explain it because our map is particularly good as far as the lots and the lot sizes. That's where it all derives from, right? So we then do those calculations and have it as a data point rather than just the lot square, and then you have to measure the tool, which again is that saving that we talked about, Rob, earlier on, is for me to do that, I have to get a list of everything, say, with 700 square meters plus that I need, and then individually look at each property map and use this measure tool, which is not completely accurate anyway, to work out whether that frontage is right. Now, that's hours of work.
So we don't need the hours of work anymore. It's just there.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. That other one, and we touched on it before, the zoning information. So the ability to search on your zone and be able to go, well, depending upon your jurisdiction, everyone's got different naming conventions. So if in New South Wales, it's an R1, R2, R3. If it's, in Queensland, it's a low density residential or a medium density residential or LMR. So different terminologies in different states, but we can search on will show me the exact zone type. Then combine that with the frontage, and then combine that with the minimum lot size that we actually need. And we start to put all of that together and we go, well, this is the true development potential for the site, right? Now, you still have to do due diligence. You still have to make sure that no other constraints actually, but what we're trying to say is, what did that raw site actually sell for? Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a game changer for a lot of developers. And look, as I said, my history is with other platforms and we just did not have that. And the amount of times I got asked, can I search on frontage? And the answer is always no, except when I came across to MPD, and here we are, frontage search. It blew my mind. So, how did you do it?
Yeah. So the other one we already touched on before was the property type. So is it a townhouse? Is it an apartment? Is it a manor house? Those sorts of things. Again, that's going to be super useful for your finished product. So understanding what your finished product is actually going to sell for, whether you're a developer or an agent trying to say what's your CMA, whether you're a valuer trying to find, what the valuation of a property is actually going to be, all those sorts of things. Another one that we've got, and it's probably, before going into what this feature is, it's probably worth talking about why this feature exists first. All of the valuer generals that sell us information from the title's perspective will sell us the fact that there is an owner's details that's sitting on title. Some states allow us to display it and some states don't, right? But every single state has a legislative requirement that says you are not allowed to use that information to market to the person.
That's right.
Now, that's consistent with us, that's consistent with our competitors. And so quite often I know that both agents and developers want to send, and investors want to send letters out to owners, but they're technically breaking the law, right? And they are in risk of the valuer general saying, don't do that, you have to get off the platform. So that's the problem. So in order to solve the problem, We have gone and sourced, I guess, some third-party data, which is the contact information of people that have lived in the property. Okay. Now it could be a tenant, it could be, I guess, the owner, it could be, I guess, a boarder, those sorts of things. So we don't exactly know who the somebody is, but we know that that somebody actually lives in that property, and so we have washed the data, and where humanly possible, try to match that against the titles office. Now you can then search, so you can then market to that database. So what we've tried to do is we try to make it, I guess, a little bit more palatable and legal and easy, which means that there are places like Victoria, for example, where the Valuer General doesn't allow the owner's details to be displayed. Now they've got some contact details for somebody who's in the property.
Look, Rob, and it's easy identifiable because you've got the in the states where you can see it, and I have to premise that because not all states allow you to display the owner's name, but in the major states where you can see the name, you'll see the sales history from the VG, and it'll be R Flux as an example, being the owner of the property, right? And then it'll be Joe Rossi at Gmail or Joe Rossi with a phone number who sits there as the contact. Well, you got a good guess that, hey, they're not related. They're possibly a tenant. And then you've got that extra information down the bottom with a marketing detail that says this property was advertised for rent. So you know that's not going to be the owner of the property. Right, so you have this information that you can see. The alternative is, hey, there's R Flux on my contact detail. There is R Flux as the owner. Hey, that's a great guess, isn't it? And there's no rental detail. That's going to be an owner-occupier sitting there.
Yeah.
So we do have to be careful when we use it, all that sort of stuff, and not just blindly expect that that's the owner, but 1, 2, 3 checks when you're looking at the record gives it to you, and we're talking seconds to do that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So the other thing that we can do is actually show the development permitted use. So what does the council actually allow to actually happen on that site? So that could be, hey, it's only a house. It could be they're allowed duplexes. Could be that they're allowed townhouses. It could be that you're allowed to do multiple of those. So we can display what those development permitted uses are, so that when you're looking at a property, whilst you still need to validate this against your town planner, it will say what the zoning category actually allows for.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
The next one that is a coming soon, and depending upon when you're watching this video, folks, it is coming real soon on this particular one, is not just the ability to display any development approvals that actually exist, but the ability to search for development approvals. So that's coming very, very soon to the platform, and by the time...
I can't stress how important that searchability is, Rob. That's the big game changer again, because other platforms will certainly give you development if there is one on that property, but you have to stumble on the property. Being able to search on it is the game changer. And because if the DA is still there, often people put DAs in and then abandon the DAs, right? So it really is quite important. And you don't want to try and get a property if someone's already wanting to develop it anyway, like the owner, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's a great game changer. And I'm quite excited the way it looks as well. It's going to give the development footprint. It's quite a nice function. I'm looking forward to it. And we've got all the wireframes ready to go. It should be in a couple of months.
Yeah. So speaking of which, I guess some other things that are coming next. So what's next for National Property Data? So that's one of those features, but we've got a whole bunch of other data sources and use cases that are actually coming. Give us some insights into some of those, mate.
Look, I think, and again, it flows with this aspect of us wanting to be helping developers. An example of this is the climate and climate valuations.
Well, it's the climate risk rating specifically.
That's exactly right. So straight away you get a risk rating. So if you're trying to buy property in Lismore as an example, that's going to go red on you, right? And you might want to buy the report, right? So one, we give the indicator that there's a risk. And second, you can then go and deep dive and purchase the report. But that risk rating is there straight away. So it'll have, fire, flood, obviously cyclones and things like that. So depending on where you're developing, this can be really viable. The other one is the lot search for hazards. Sorry, go on, Rob.
Before we leave that one, mate, this is... I don't want to underestimate this one because a lot of people go, climate, who cares, right? But we need to care. And the reason why we need to care is because whether you believe it or not, climate change is real. And what's happening is that the insurance companies are jacking up insurances, that councils are saying, no, we're not going to allow developments to actually occur, that banks are actually stopping the lending from actually occurring on some of these properties.
Correct.
So from a climate risk rating perspective, what you're really assessing is what's the risk of me being able to sell this finished product at the end because someone won't want to have the high premium, someone won't want the higher interest rate, or the risk that they can't actually buy it because in a half a degree shift in temperature might mean that now that property is underwater, or now that property is more exposed to bushfire, or a whole bunch of other things. So don't underestimate that one, folks. It's one of those things where it looks like a tick in the box, but boy, you need to pay attention.
I'm glad you mentioned the financing side because this climate valuation company that produces the data that we want to integrate into our platform, major customers and all their revenue at the moment comes from banks. Right?
Because they're assessing whether or not they should actually be lending to these properties.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it is so important, and that's why we want to put it in there. And I was about to move on to that lot search, and you know what? You buy a property next door, an old service station, you may have some big problems.
Well, so lot search is the supplier of the data, but it's more specifically a contaminated land search.
That's exactly right.
So they are giving you some insights into, like they've scoured a good couple of thousand different sources of potential contamination. And, there's not just the ones that are state government controlled, but there's a whole bunch of other sources that they've actually gone to, and they're giving you a flag to say, look, there is potentially some contamination that's actually sitting on that property that you want to know about, because it might mean, hey, I just need to scrape some soil off the top. It might mean I need to completely replace all the soil that's actually sitting there, or it might not be developable at all, depending upon what has actually happened. Everything from, was it previously a quarry? You touched on being a service station. It might be in the proximity of a service station, so you might think you're safe, but there might be seepage under the ground that was reported at some point in time that you have no idea about. All of those things have actually been factored in to go, well, here's a flag to go, this is potentially a no-go property.
Yeah, you just look at what's happening up around the airports and the Army airport up around, I've forgotten the suburb, but it was in the news recently where they were using the fire foam, and that ended up contaminating land next door to them, right? So that's the sort of stuff that can happen.
Yeah, so those ones that we touched on before, the updated mapping is actually going to, in the early new year. So those ones are 100%, well, I'm going to say 1,000% locked in train. That those things are coming, right? There's some stuff that we've got that's kind of secret squirrel, right? There's some commercials that need to be signed and a few other things like that. So we can kind of talk conceptually, but I don't want to give away the farm here, mate, because we don't want our competitors to get onto this. But a lot more data points for the development potential of the site, right?
Correct.
So a lot more data points for that. That's going to mean that your ability to, narrow down the exact property that you're actually looking for, again, from that development potential is going to be much, much better. And when we're not that far away from, I guess, having in principle agreements on some of those things,
absolutely.
Which then has to turn into contractual agreements, which then has to turn into integration, and so we might be a little way from
surface the data at last. We were talking about propensity. Propensity to sell as an example of that, right? You're looking at that consumer data, AI put into that, and then you get this propensity to list, which is really quite gold. Like, hey, this person more likely to sell their property than these people, right?
Yeah. So the other one, again, kind of roadmappy stuff, but all of our competitors look at what is happening to the property. Okay. So it's everything about the property, but we're starting to look at what's happening to the person in the property. So if we can get some insights into what's happening to the person in the property, that is the person that decides, hey, I want to move. That is the person that decides, hey, I want to buy the next one. So if we can understand the psyche of the person living in there, then that's going to give us some predictive modeling things that will allow us to do all sorts of crazy stuff. So that is blue sky stuff, but I want you guys to actually understand that we're thinking that big and we're going that hard to make this platform the best platform humanly possible. And the only way that we can make that happen is to be able to fund those things, which means we actually need subscribers today to fund the things that we built today. And if we can do that, that allows us to generate the revenue to then build the product of the future. And I think that we've got the product of the future now anyway, but I want the future, right?
Rob, I want to talk a little bit about, how we've tried to make it easy for people to purchase. And again, it can be a bit convoluted out there. Do I want all the features? Do I want more than one state? Do I, how much is it? If I go more than one state, is it blowing my costs out? So we've taken the attitude that it's all you can eat.
Yeah, so that's
so
what our
have all the states that we play in,
right? That's slicing and dicing is what our competitors do. But
exactly
you're
right. It's confusion. It's lowering lowering what the offering to meet different marketplaces so they can increase their wallet. We'd love to sell you more stuff, but right now we want to make it as simple as possible. It's all of our functionality in the one simple price. All of our database in the one simple price. And I think that's really important. There's no hidden costs here. It's just really easy. And you don't have to sign up to long contracts. So if you've got a investment cycle or a looking cycle that's only going to last 6 months, you can go monthly with us.
Yeah, which the other guys don't let you do. They lock you in. And even when they lock you in, you have to then give them a bunch of notice so that when you say, hey, I want to leave, they lock you in for even longer in order to get out. So those who shan't be named.
Yes, 30 days notice, 30-day cycles. Keep it as long as you like. It's really nice and simple. We've taken the sort of the Netflix model, right? Come in and out when you like, when you need to.
Yeah. So that said, mate, how much?
So look, it's $99 per month. There's some really special discounts that we give your brethrens here, Rob. So maybe you can talk to that. But $99 a month gives you full access to all of our databases.
Yeah. So let me talk to that. So because of the fact that I wear the hat of Property Developer Network and I wear the hat of National Property Data, I have been beating Joe and his team up quite hard to say, hey, how do I actually look after my community? And so, folks, if you are just a member of our community, so you just come to a meetup or you've been listening to our YouTubes or things like that, then you get a 10% discount on that $99 that Joe was actually talking about. If, however, you are actually an annual member, if you actually subscribe and come to all of our meetups and all those sorts of things, then we've bumped up that 10% to a 20% discount.
Yeah.
Now, the way to find both of those is to actually go to our Developer Network shop okay? And it's smart enough to know, are you a member of our community or are you an annual member? And if you're an annual member, it will give you the option for that extra 20% discount. If you are not an annual member, then you'll just get the 10% button that's actually sitting there. So if you are interested to become an annual member, it's $250 for the year in order to become an annual member for Property Developer Network. Come to all of our events, both live streamed and physical. We physically present these in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, and Adelaide. Plus, we live stream all of those places as well. And so, for a very cheap price to become an annual member, you get the 20% discount to become a National Property Data subscriber. And that price, once you've signed up, that's that price for as long as you actually stay on the platform. So make sure, folks, that you take advantage of that. Go to that Developer Network shop, follow the link, and Joe and his team will chat to you on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or whenever you, I guess, hit that button. But use it, folks, seriously. And I'm saying this from the genuineness of my heart. This is the platform that I wanted when I was going through the exact same thing that you guys are right now. And so we have built, I guess, a fantastic product right now. What we are wanting to build and where we're trying to take this really needs active subscribers right now to help us to actually fund the next level of development. So get on the train, folks. Leave the other guys behind. Come over to us, and let's grow this thing together.
And Rob, I just wanted to add that we supply one-on-one training sessions for you that you can book in on, and ask those questions. How do I do splitter blocks? How do I do frontage searches? How do I manipulate the data? And our friendly support staff will take you through webinars on those. You can speak to people. So, and we've got lots of videos to train you up on as well. So lots of support behind the subscription service that you're getting.
Yeah, very good, mate. It has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much, Rob.
Yeah, mate. So I'm hoping that the phones ring hot after this, mate. So
I'll be there.
Good, folks. So no matter where you are in the country, if you want to come to one of our events, you can come to our website, go to our events page, come to one of our events. I just touched on before how you can actually do that if you are an annual member, but literally go to the events page, which is on your on your link here, and turn up to one of our events. We'll put on a great show for you with industry experts, real deal presenters, networking, and beverages afterwards. So, but until then, folks, it's been a pleasure, Joe.
Thank you so much.
Sharing the story. So thank you very much for your time. I'm going to say goodbye, folks, and we'll see you all soon. Bye.
Bye now.